Hello and welcome back to my blog. Yes, I have the same shirt on and it's the same scene as yesterday because I am shooting a few of these on the same day because it's so nice out and I've got daylight. Sophisms of the Protectionists, part 15. This is the second part of chapter 4, Equalizing of the Facilities of Production. Let us suppose the countries A and B. A has every advantage over B. You thence conclude that labor will be concentrated upon A, while B must be abandoned. A, you say, sells much more than it buys. B buys more than it sells. I might dispute this, but I will meet you upon your own ground. In the hypothesis, labor, being in great demand in A, soon rises in value, while labor, iron, coal, lands, food, capital, all being little sought after in B, soon fall in price. Again, A being always selling and B always buying, cash passes from B to A. It is abundant in A, very scarce in B. But where there is abundance of cash, it follows that in all purchases a large proportion of it will be needed. Then in A, real dearness, which proceeds from a very active demand, is added to nominal dearness, the consequence of a superabundance of the precious metals. Scarcity of money implies that little is necessary for each purchase. Then in B, a nominal cheapness is combined with real cheapness. Under these circumstances, industry will have the strongest possible motives for deserting A to establish itself in B. Now, to return to what would be the true course of things, as the progress of such events is always gradual, industry, from its nature being opposed to sudden transits, let us suppose that, without waiting the extreme point, it will have gradually divided itself between A and B according to the laws of supply and demand, that is to say, according to the laws of justice and usefulness. I do not advance an empty hypothesis when I say that were it possible that industry should concentrate itself upon a single point, there must, from its nature, arise spontaneously and in its midst an irresistible power of decentralization. We will quote the words of a manufacturer to the Chamber of Commerce at Manchester. The figures brought into his demonstration are suppressed. Quote, "Formerly we exported goods. This exportation gave way to that of thread for the manufacture of goods. Later, instead of thread, we exported machinery for the making of thread, then capital for the construction of machinery, and lastly, workmen and talent, which are the source of capital. All these elements of labor have, one after the other, transferred themselves to other points, where the profits were increased and where the means of subsistence being less difficult to obtain, life is maintained at less cost. There are at present to be seen in Prussia, Austria, Saxony, Switzerland, and Italy immense manufacturing establishments founded entirely by English capital, worked by English labor, and directed by English talent." End of quote. We may here perceive that nature, or rather providence, with more wisdom and foresight than the narrow, rigid system of the protectionists can suppose, does not permit the concentration of labor, the monopoly of advantages, from which they draw their arguments as from an absolute and irremediable fact. It has, by means as simple as they are infallible, provided for dispersion, diffusion, mutual dependence, and simultaneous progress, all of which your restrictive laws paralyze as much as is in their power by their tendency towards the isolation of nations. By this means they render much more decided the differences existing in the conditions of production. They check the self-leveling power of industry, prevent fusion of interests, and fence in each nation within its own peculiar advantages and disadvantages. Part 3. To say that by a protective law the conditions of production are equalized is to disguise an error under false terms. It is not true that an import duty equalizes the conditions of production. These remain, after this imposition of the duty, just as they were before. The most that the law can do is to equalize the conditions of sale. If it should be said that I am playing upon words, I retort the accusation upon my adversaries. It is for them to prove that production and sale are synonymous terms, which if they cannot do, I have a right to accuse them, if not of playing upon words, at least of confounding them. Let me be permitted to exemplify my idea. Suppose that several Parisian speculators should determine to devote themselves to the production of oranges. They know that the oranges of Portugal can be sold in Paris at 10 centimes, whilst on account of the boxes, hothouses, etc., which are necessary to ward against the severity of our climate, it is impossible to raise them at less than a franc apiece. They accordingly demand a duty of 90 centimes upon Portugal oranges. With the help of this duty, say they, the conditions of production will be equalized. The legislative body, yielding as usual to this argument, imposes a duty of 90 centimes on each foreign orange. Now I say that the relative conditions of production are in no wise changed. The law can take nothing from the heat of the sun in Lisbon, nor from the severity of the frosts in Paris. Oranges, continuing to mature themselves naturally on the banks of the Tagus and artificially upon those of the Seine, must continue to require for their production much more labor on the latter than the former. The law can only equalize the conditions of sale. It is evident that while the Portuguese sell their oranges at a franc apiece, the 90 centimes which go to pay the tax are taken from the French consumer. Now look at the whimsicality of the result. Upon each Portuguese orange, the country loses nothing, for the 90 centimes which the consumer pays to satisfy the tax enter into the treasury. There is improper distribution, but no loss. Upon each French orange consumed, there will be about 90 centimes lost, for while the buyer very certainly loses them, the seller just as certainly does not gain them. For even according to the hypothesis, he will receive only the price of production. I will leave it to the protectionists to draw their conclusions. 4. I have laid some stress upon this distinction between the conditions of production and those of sale, which perhaps the prohibitionists may consider as paradoxical, because it leads me on to what they will consider as a still stranger paradox. This is, if you really wish to equalize the facilities of production, leave trade free. This may surprise the protectionists, but let me entreat them to listen, if it be only through curiosity, to the end of my argument. It shall not be long. I will now take it up where we left off. If we suppose for the moment that the common and daily profits of each Frenchman amount to 1 franc, it will indisputably follow that to produce an orange by direct labor in France, 1 day's work or its equivalent will be requisite, whilst to produce the cost of a Portuguese orange, only 1/10 of this day's labor is required. Which means simply this, that the sun does at Lisbon what labor does at Paris. Now, is it not evident that if I can produce an orange, or, what is the same thing, the means of buying it, with 1/10 of a day's labor, I am placed exactly in the same condition as the Portuguese producer himself, excepting the expense of the transportation. It is then certain that freedom of commerce equalizes the conditions of production, direct or indirect, as much as it is possible to equalize them, for it leaves but the one inevitable difference, that of transportation.